All right, Michelle, the Scooby Doo Rogues Gallery Commission continues.
Oh, good.
Our patron wanted 4 more of Scooby's creepiest monsters, and we're going to paint them today in watercolor and gouache.
And these are some of our favorites.
Yeah.
We have the Creeper.
Creeper!
The Phantom Shadows. The Ghost Clown. And your favorite, the Spooky Space Kook.
Now, for anyone who's watched all of our Scooby Doo videos, first of all, I apologize. I'm sorry to put you through all that.
Yeah.
But also, you may note that these monsters have something in common besides, of course, being Scooby's hapless villains.
That's right, because we've done some version of each of these creeps before.
Yeah, some of them just in inks, some ink and wash, some ink and watercolor, some in marker, and 2 of them we sculpted.
Yeah. So you went with the purple hair.
I went with the purple hair over the brown for 2 reasons.
Okay.
1, if the season 2 intro is canon, then the purple hair is canon.
Fair enough.
And B, the client requested it.
Oh, yeah.
Because he agrees with me that the brown hair, while perfectly serviceable, is not as freaky, Halloween-y, cartoony as the purple.
Right.
And we're all just trying to have some fun here.
Yeah.
So purple it is. With each of these monsters, I'm working a little bit differently, trying things out as I go along.
Okay.
With Creeper, I put down all of the watercolor first, and then I went back in with the gouache line work. Basically, it's the same sort of lines that I'd have done with inks, but I'm using colored gouache instead.
I like the colored lines.
Yeah.
I like black ink lines too, but the color really adds like a little bump, you know?
You might not know this,
Yeah.
but Little Bump was Creeper's nickname in high school.
No, it wasn't.
It absolutely was.
No, it
All
wasn't.
the girls called Creeper Little Bump.
No, they didn't.
Creeper doesn't know why.
No.
Do not
Move on.
appreciate
Next.
that nickname.
Who's next? The Phantom
Little
Shadows.
Yeah, the Phantom Shadows from A Night of Fright is no delight. So with these 2 ghosts,
Little Bump.
I decided to lay down the lines first with the gouache.
So basically how you brush in ink lines, but with color.
Yeah, and I add just a little bit of water to the gouache to loosen it up just a bit. This is acrylic gouache, by the way, so it will eventually dry and be permanent on the page,
Okay.
which really helps since I'll be splashing a bunch of watercolor on top of all this.
The episode these ghosts came from, by the way, is the same episode used in the show Supernatural,
Right.
when Sam and Dean Winchester get sucked into a cursed television and end up in a Scooby Doo cartoon.
Yeah, and I had no idea, but it was because we don't watch the show.
Right.
But our client, the guy who commissioned these portraits, he contacted us, frankly, on our personal time. So I don't even. That's another issue. We have to talk about that. But he was kind enough to let us know that episode was airing, and we hadn't seen it, and we watched it, and we loved it.
It was a lot of fun.
It really was.
So big thanks to that patron who is apparently just as big as Saturday morning cartoon nerd as we are.
Yeah. And that's actually a pretty good example of the many interesting and entertaining conversations we have, not only with that patron, but with a number of the people in our Patreon who contact us through the community boards to just talk about cartoons and monsters and their projects and movies.
It's a good group.
Yeah.
I love our Patreon people.
Yeah, they're awesome. And we appreciate not just their support, but their input and their enthusiasm. And, if anyone wants to look into becoming a Patreon member, the link is always down there in the info. And, of course, if you enjoy these videos, if you get something out of them, some entertainment, some education, and you want to help support this silliness, if you want to help us make more videos, but you're not sure you want to make a monthly commitment, there's always that old super thanks button if you want to just drop us a one-time how do you do and be on your merry way. Because every dollar counts.
Yeah.
Especially when we are trying to save up for Michelle's butt lift. I'm sorry. I had to tell the audience the truth.
All right.
I want to be
Enough.
honest with our people. Look,
Move along.
I'm getting
Who's
one too
next?
in
The
solidarity.
Ghost Clown. Okay, let's go.
Okay, fine. Ghost Clown. Watch the pretty coin of gold, and you will do as you are told.
Perfect. A clown drawing a clown.
I don't care. I don't care what you say.
I swear to God.
Your barbs don't wound me. All right, so this clown I'm painting in a similar way to how I painted the creeper. All of the watercolor is going down first, and I'll do the gouache lines afterward. His face is white, So I started with a desaturated blue to punch up the shadows and give him some form, but the white's going to be the paper white.
Right, okay.
This character design, by the way, has 3 different reds.
Oh, yeah.
A pinkish red around his mouth, an orange red for his collar and gloves.
And his puffballs.
And his puffballs. Stare into my puffballs of gold. And everything else is a red.
Yeah.
Also, we need to get more red, just so you know.
Yeah, put it on the list.
I'll also remind you that I'm using hot press watercolor paper, which is very smooth, but sometimes it's tough for me to get a nice blend on it.
Right.
For me, anyway. But in this case, I'm leaving a lot more distinction between the colors, so the blending isn't really an issue.
He looks creepy.
He absolutely looks creepy.
Yeah.
And I had to paint in the gold chain of his coin, and I know the base levels of caffeine in my system make my hands way too shaky to do that with gouache and a brush.
Yes.
But I just grabbed a Posca marker and a ruler, and I think that worked out just fine.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, and finally, a spooky space kook. Yes, he's my favorite. But I'm going to admit, his title, his name,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of the edge off of the horror.
Well, it's a kid show.
I know it's a kid show, but if he were called Cosmic Death, maybe.
It's
or the Bonestronaut.
Kids show.
Neil Armbone. I just feel like he'd get more respect, like if he were the Celestial Ghoul.
I feel strongly that it's a kid show.
You cannot tell me that at any given time, the audience for Scooby Doo doesn't consist of at least 70% adults.
Yeah.
It's hardly a kid show, Michelle. Which is one of the reasons the clients and I decided that giving the Space Reaper a full-on bony skull instead of that cartoon blue one he has in the episode was justified. It's how I draw the Space Kook when I draw him. The client fully supports my delusion.
I know you'd prefer I fight you on this, but
Yeah,
I
as
agree.
usual.
I like the skull.
You obsequious sucker.
Wow.
The sky in this portrait is based on the melancholy sky over the airfield in that episode.
Yes.
They have these pale, desaturated magenta clouds in an overcast sky that evoke these feelings of isolation and loneliness. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but when you couple that with a laughing skeleton in a tin can spacesuit, that's when the magic really happens for me. And I really tried to work the watercolors in such a way as to give him a nice, reflective suit. He's from space.
Yeah.
And I think in the end, it works out.
And then once the watercolors were dry,
Yeah.
you went in with gouache and did the line work.
Yeah.
All right, it's time. Let's go back to the haunted gallery with Shaggy and see how these turned out.
Like, back at the old haunted gallery. Hope that creeper isn't creeping around. Yes, you're going to have to put up with my terrible Shaggy impersonation.
Oh, good.
Like, it's the Phantom Shadows. Turns out they were just a couple of greedy lawyers in costumes. Like, who couldn't see that one coming?
I know, right?
Their names were Creeps and Crawls.
Yes.
The Ghost Clown. How did the circus management not connect the dots between the hypnotist clown? Look, seriously, how did the circus not connect the dots between the hypnotist clown and the crooked hypnotist that they had just fired?
Honestly.
Seriously.
Yes.
How do you not put 2 and 2 together?
I don't know.
It's the Space Kook! We defeated him with a giant fan that blew his clothes off. That is true, though.
Yeah.
They defeated him.
Yes.
They trapped him in an airlock, and they literally blew his clothes off.
Not all of them.
No, not all of them. It's a kid's show, Michelle.
What? You just
Also,
told
this
me.
is one of the very few blue-collar villains
That's
of
right.
the show.
Right?
Like, who do we have? Zoinks! You're not gonna fool me this time. Like, just good old watercolor paintings in here.
Yes.
Maybe some gouache line work. No actual monsters, though, right? Zoinks! Like it's the ghost of Captain Cutler!
That's so ridiculous.
Oh, well, God, that's so stupid. That is so stupid.
Stupid.
Why do you make me do this? I'll say this. As ridiculous as that was,
Yeah.
I had a ton of fun working on these 4 monsters.
I might like them even more than the last
No,
batch.
you like them evenly to the last batch. Don't say, I don't need the client thinking I phoned in the first batch.
You're right.
What are you trying to do?
You're right. I like them all evenly.
You should.
Are there going to be more?
I think there's a chance we may be stopping back at the haunted gallery again sometime in the future.
Good.
I can't make any promises,
Right.
but I certainly hope we do.
Guess we gotta sculpt another monster to
Oh,
chase
God,
Shaggy
you're right.
around.
Do we ever get a day off?
You told me when I fall asleep, that's
your
my day off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I blame the client. That guy's got it in for me. You don't think he's watching this, do you?
No, not at all.